What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? This was a tough one this week because we dropped to 20 and 17 in this loss, dropped to 0 and 2 on the season, which is the first time in Mahomes' era that this has happened. We're also at home at Arrowhead, home field advantage, and we still lost this game. And this is the second time in a row that we've lost to the Eagles, so that one stung a little bit. So this 0 and 2 start, let's talk about what went right, what went wrong, and what this means moving forward and how we feel because I know we all definitely have our feelings about this. All right. So, first half, y'all, I felt that the Chiefs defense started really strong. We kept Jalen Hurts in check through the air, and I don't have any big critiques of our defense. I felt like this was a really, really well played game defensively, and that they did their part in doing what they had to do. In the first half, I'd also say that Mahomes even showed flashes, even leading the team and rushing pretty early on, and that was pretty that gave me confidence, right? But the offense, even though they moved the ball, they did stall in key spots. So that red zone execution again in week two was a little bit shaky. And coming off of that week one loss against the Chargers, I'd say this is still a major issue that we have not worked the kinks out of yet. So a big note, of course, something that we are still battling with the key pieces in our wide receiver core is, of course, Rashi Rice is still suspended. We won't see him back until week 7 because he's out for 6 games. And then, of course, Xavier Worthy was hurt and injured in last week's game, and they were saying that he was going to be day to day, but we still didn't see him, and he was very limited in practices all last week. It is a shoulder injury. I have no idea when we're going to see him. Is it day to day because they want to be reserved with what they say? They don't want us to freak out if he were to hit the IR. So I don't know. We're going to wait and see. But those key pieces missing in our receiver core definitely played a big part of our game one, the rest of game one last week, and then part of the game two here too this week. I'd say a key turning point in this game happened late in the red zone drive that it was a beautiful drive. Man, it was so gorgeous, but a very rare mishap between Mahomes and Kelsey here. But Kelsey tipped this pass and it got intercepted by Eagles rookie Andrew Makuba. Like big props to him. What a big moment for him. It really turned the game around right then and there. It was a beautiful drive on our part, and I was getting so excited, as I'm sure a lot of y'all were. But that moment shifted the momentum entirely. And instead of us putting points on the board, Philly stole that possession and they went with it. So that play, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like that's going to haunt me for a really long time because this is a very rare mistake involving two of our very key players and a connection that we absolutely love most of the time at a very critical moment. So some stats and performance breakdown that I want to talk about here. Patrick Mahomes, y'all. He literally was like, "Let me do what I can do." He rushed, he passed, he did what he had to do, but 187 passing yards here in week two's game, one touchdown, one interception, but he led this team in rushing yards. He had 66 yards and a rushing touchdown. I'd say that my biggest critique from week one was the fact that we did not run the ball. We ran the ball some this week, but we still didn't run the ball as often as I felt we should have, especially because the intermediate passing game was very lackluster yesterday. So he himself, Patrick Mahomes, carried way too much of the offense on his back. And I think this is something that he tries to do when he sees that it's not coming together, but we can't rely on this. He was scrambling, he was rushing, he was taking hits, and this is one of those things that I don't want to see that for us if at all possible. And I know that we are trying to make some things work out in our receiving core, but relying on Patrick Mahomes and having him feel like he has to put the team on his back is not okay. Our Chiefs offense as a whole, 216 total yards. That's what we ended up with, 216. And that's not enough. And we didn't have that consistent deep threat. I know last week a lot of the game plan was around Xavier Worthy and the deep ball and whatnot. We attempted that a few times today with Tyquan Thornton, or I keep saying today, we attempted that a few times with Tyquan Thornton, but it took the third time before that connection happened. And it was that late 49-yard touchdown that gave us a few more points. And it was really the only explosive play out of that entire game. So There was not a consistent deep threat. I think that Taekwon can be an answer, but I think that we need to work on a few of those connections to make sure that that can be something. Might have been, I don't know. I don't want to be too critical, but I think that possibly Patrick was a little bit off. The intermediate passes did not exist in this week's game. And also those long passes, those deep passes, a lot of them were overthrown. And we saw that a few times throughout the game there. So we need to work on that, but Tyquan Thornton could be that answer in the interim while we're trying to figure out when do we get some of our other receivers back. But he did a great job. So the offensive line did okay. They gave Mahomes a little bit of time to do what he needed to do, but the receivers really struggled to separate and give him room to work with. So other than that one really overthrown Tyquan Thornton pass attempt there. So that was a little bit of a struggle. So our Chiefs defense, y'all, again, like I said, I have very little to criticize them about, but they were very solid. They limited Jalen Hurts. They held him to just over 100 yards of passing. We contained that deep ball well, but we gave up on key third down conversions, especially one that was a 3rd and 10 to Devonta Smith that came late and oh, that one hurt. So we did stop one of the tush push attempts, but there were others that we did not, and it's really hard to stop that. And I'm glad that we were able to stop one, but at this point, I'm good with not seeing the tush push ever again. So it's hard to really see where the ball is at. It's hard to see what's happening under that pile. I'm okay if we never see it again, but of course, it would require the entire league to come together and make that decision at some postseason officiating and ownership meeting and all that. And I'm not privy to those decisions. Anyhow, special teams, moving on to special teams here. The onside kick attempt at the very end of the game definitely fell flat. The Eagles recovered that onside kick, of course. Harrison Butker throughout the game, he was steady, but he didn't get enough chances. He didn't have enough chances. There was one that was missed, of course, and that would have given us 3 more points, but I'm not going to point fingers one way or another special teams wise because there was a lot that was, there was just a lot. So, low lights for Kansas City here. I want to talk about that red zone failure again. The Chiefs reached inside the Eagles and came away empty after that interception. And that's too bad because those are the moments that you really need to capitalize on. And we just didn't and couldn't do that. So the receiver depth issues again. All right. With Rice and Worthy out, our offense felt really one-dimensional, very vanilla, very, very flat. So that's something that we need to figure out because we cannot game plan for 1 or 2 players. We need the entire team to come together and to do what they have been put together to do. Finishing drives was another issue here in these lowlights that I'm going to talk about here. Too many wasted possessions where Patrick Mahomes had to scramble just to extend plays. And like I mentioned already, I don't want to put him in a scenario every single week where he feels as he has to put the offense on his back and carry it. I don't want that to happen. It needs to stop because we have a lot of talent on our team. We just need to figure it out and we need to game plan better. The bright spots in this game, I would say, is that Mahomes' leadership. He kept Kansas City in it with his legs as long as he could and with as much as he could do. I got to give him that. Tyquan Thornton stepping up with that big touchdown catch, that 3rd time's a charm, that was really huge. And I know that was a huge confidence booster for him, but I think that was also really great for his team to see and for all of us to see because, yeah, he can do it, right? The connection wasn't there the first 2 attempts that they had, but that third one, it was perfect. So if they can work on that during practice, if they can get that connection dialed in a little bit better, then maybe we can have some of those more exciting, lively, long plays that we desperately need at times. Defense was a bright spot this week. They kept it close enough to win despite being on the field a lot, and they did so much to hold the Eagles offense. And again, no complaints about them. I felt like they did a really, really, really strong performance on the field there this week. My big picture takeaways here is that we are 0-2 for the first time in this Mahomes era. This is the headline. This is the news because this is 2014. This hasn't been the case since 2014, and that was 11 years ago. This is wild. Another big picture takeaway here is that the offense clearly misses our reliable wide receiver options. Okay. And I know we're accustomed to Mahomes and Kelsey trying to carry too much, and Kelsey had a couple of times there where he converted and made some big plays happen for us in very key moments. However, there are times too, like that end zone takeaway, where that Mahomes and Kelsey connection just did not work. And it was a really big mistake and a very rare mistake. Defense is good enough to keep Kansas City in games, but this team really needs to find our offensive rhythm, and we need to do that fast because we are 0-2. This is not pretty, y'all. This is not pretty. The next few weeks, speaking of, are huge. Can we fix our red zone execution issues, and can we get our young wide receivers back? We don't know yet about Xavier Worthy. He is day to day, as Coach Reed has said many a times, he is day to day. So without him, how do we game plan? How do we do this moving forward to make sure that we have a plan that's going to stick and it's going to work despite those key receivers not being a part of the game? So my thing with moving into week 3 here is that this is the battle of 0 and 2s. We are going to meet the Giants and play against these Giants who are also 0 and 2. Never have I ever. Anyway, that's besides the point. But Cheese Kingdom, I want to know, how worried are y'all about this 0 and 2 start? I'm not terribly worried. I always have faith. I always have confidence that we'll figure it out because we can't have the kind of talent that we have and go out there and continue to lose games. But the execution has to be improved, absolutely. I want to know if you think this is just early season rust, or do we have a bigger problem with our offense? I want your thoughts in the comments, so drop them below. I want to hear from you. And don't forget, like, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss out on the next game recap. I'll be doing these for you all season long, so don't forget to come along for all the thoughts post game and pre game as well this coming week. So I'll see you soon. Go Chiefs!